Hi guys, welcome to Irish Footy Vlogs. Today is the weekend preview show, Premier Division and First Division. You may have noticed that that's not Cian Menton there standing in front of me. It's JP Fatty. How are you, JP? You well?
Fine, Keith. Thanks for having me on.
No bother. Thanks for coming on. Cian can't make it this week, so JP was very good in deciding to come on pretty much last minute. So fair play to you, JP. We'll start off with the first game, which is your side, Derry City. They take on Waterford. 1 win and 5 for Derry City. 3 wins and 5 for Waterford. Derry on 13 points, isn't it? Or is it 12 points? Sorry.
13.
Yeah, you're right. 13 points. And Waterford obviously are up near those European positions as well. They're third in the table as well. So, big game for Derry City. Last few weeks, they've lost games late on, haven't they? Which has been a killer. They lost 2-1 against Bohemians, as we all know. To even draw that game would have been disappointing, never mind losing the last couple of seconds. And then a late winner for Sligo as well against Derry. So this is a big game for Derry, the Brandywell. They need to get the 3 points here, JP, don't they?
It's massive. It really is massive. I think looking at the league table the other night, I think our goal difference at the minute is what's keeping us away from the likes of. It means our goal difference at the minute means Van Harps have to pick up at least 4 points to go above us. But as you say, the last 2 weeks we've thrown away 4 points anyway in the last 5-10 minutes of games. The Bows game was really disappointing because I felt it was the best we've played since the restart as a whole unit. I felt at the start we were good going forward. We were leaking goals at the back. Then we sorted out the defence and we didn't sort out the attack. And I thought the Bows game was the one game where we really got it right throughout the 90 minutes. But unfortunately, we just switched off in the last injury time. Basically, we switched off, conceded a penalty, conceded a needless free kick. Didn't defend the free kick. And when you go up against top teams, you have to defend free kicks like that there. And Sligo, it was just a bit of a ball watching at the back post, I think. Looking at the replay again last night, I think Kieran caught it. Did he get caught out with the wind, maybe? Because the wind was going that way. You don't know, but it was really disappointing as a supporter. Obviously, the players and Declan Devine had very strong words for them after Sligo and the other night to say, look, do they have the character to get us out of trouble? And tomorrow night will tell a tale if they do or not.
I wonder if the Bowls game going into the Sligo game late on, the last 5 minutes against Sligo, a bit of nerves came into it because of what happened in Bowls. There's a possibility of that as well, isn't there? Because they kind of started to hang on a little bit, and then you're thinking, they actually lost to Waterford earlier on the season, JP, as well. I think it was 2-1. Wasn't that a late goal or two as well in that game, actually?
3 late goals as well.
Yeah.
3 late goals.
Enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I seen a stat the other night, but I think it was actually tweeted out at the start of September. Waterford have lost 8 points in the final 15 minutes of games, and Derry have lost 7 points, but you can actually now add another 6 on the Derry's points. So I think Derry's and they lost in the same amount of points as what they've gained the whole season. But did it play a part? Only the Derry players will know, because what I've noticed is we tend to drop off a lot in the final 20 minutes anyway. We did it against Shamrock Rovers. We did it against Bows. We did it even against Shelbourne. We dropped off. Shelbourne scored, and that's only after that Shelbourne scored that we decided to come out and attack again.
Even in the Pats match recently, actually, in the last 15 minutes, Pats were pushing Derry. Have you noticed that? So they dropped off there too. So it's obviously kind of a psychological thing that they are dropping off late in games. And as you say, if you drop off, you've certainly more of a chance of conceding than you do of scoring, don't you?
You definitely do. I think we have touched on it as supporters and stuff. As Derry City need the crowd, I think, because maybe we did notice it a lot last year because we were maybe winning matches and seeing games out. But I think even since Declan came on, his team has always relied on the crowd to get them over the line, especially in the big games, the likes of Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers. Maybe if it was a packed out Brandywell when we played Shamrock Rovers, maybe we might have held on for a one, maybe got a point. You don't know that, but it just seems to be, if you're dropping off, you're not going to score goals. Like we had 2 great chances in the second half against Sligo. Stephen Mallon pulled one wide and how Fagura hit the post, nobody knows. Like, I suppose he was sliding in, so nobody really had any. He didn't have really any control of the shot other than just letting it hit him. But
yeah, so you're right. It's just letting it hit him, and 9 times out of 10 it still goes in. But yeah, that's the bit of luck they're missing out on as well, though. I suppose,
it is. But as they say, you make your own luck as well. And if you don't put the ball in the back of net at one end, you're always susceptible to conceding a goal at the other end, whether it be a lit equaliser or a lit winner, as a case of Bowes and Sligo. But I think Derry might have been a wee bit unlucky in Daily Mount because I know chatting to some people, the players were adamant that that one was over the line from Owen Toll's header in the second half, but um, only the referee and the linesman will know whether it was or not.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult game for them against Waterford, but at the same time, Waterford are going for those European places, 3 wins in the last 5, as I said. But from my point of view, I just have a funny feeling Derry will nick this one. I feel like they're due a bit of luck and they might just get it in this game. There could be late goals because, as you said, both teams tend to concede goals in the last 15 minutes of the game. Derry will be looking for a little bit of revenge after the last meeting at the RSC. So I think it'll be tight and tense, but I'm going to go Derry to win this one 1-0. What do you think yourself, JP?
I think it'll be tight as well. As in, I would like to see the players show a bit of reaction to Declan Devine's words because they were very strong. And I know if I was playing the team and my manager came out afterwards and questioned my character, I think it would make me play better. And I think I'm going to go for a draw because I don't think we're playing well enough. I think, as you touched on there, is it Waterford have 3 wins in 5 and Derry has 1 win in 5?
Yeah.
I think Waterford are the informed team. They're pushing for Europe. So I'm going to go for a draw for this one.
You're right, though, just quickly before we move on, Derry's goal difference is far superior to the teams below them, so that's an extra point, really, which is huge, I think, as well. Shamrock Rovers then take on Sligo Rovers in the same evenings, the Rovers derby as such. Rovers, for me, Shamrock, I better say. Shamrock Rovers have the League One, essentially, in my opinion. Sligo still with a chance of Europe. They're only a point behind Waterford now, although Waterford have a game in hand. How do you see this one going, JP?
I can't see it going any other way. And Shamrock Rovers won. I just think I know last week they played a relatively changed Dundalk team, but let's not kid ourselves. It may have been Dundalk's second string, but it wasn't a young team as many Dundalk fans try to, because a lot of them players have played senior football for the last 5, 6, 7 years. Some of them were even over the water playing, and then you've got that young kid that was on the wing as Alua. He was excellent.
I
thought for Dundalk.
Yeah.
So I can't see any other way. I can't see any other result than a Shamrock Rovers won in this game.
I think the Shamrock Rovers as well beat an inform Waterford 6-1 recently as well. You know what I mean? They look a level, even if it was a full season. I know people say they bottled it a little bit last season, but for me, they look better again this season than they did last season. I think the cup win gave them the confidence. I think,
I
think
the fact that people are saying they bottled it last year when they may have been 13 points clear, but I think Dundalk had about 3 or 4 games in hand on them.
Yeah, did a couple of games in hand. Yeah.
So I think that's probably Stephen Bradley has probably pinned them sort of comments up in the dressing room to say, look, they're saying you've bottled it. Let's go and show them that we have bottled and that we can get over the line. No matter what, whoever won the league this year, it was always going to be it was always going to be other than the team that won it. The rest of them are going to say it's tainted. I don't think you can say it's tainted. Shamrock Rovers, I think over a 36 game season, Shamrock Rovers would have had too much for anybody.
I think so, absolutely. Like, the class players in every position, don't they? The way to keep the ball. I mean, against Dundalk, there was a stage for about 10 minutes where Rovers kept the ball, and all Dundalk could do was foul them. You know what I mean? They just couldn't do it. It was pure frustration. We can't actually get the football here. So they just started fouling them. Fouled them 3 or 4 times in the space of 10 minutes. And Rovers just had kept the ball for that 10 minutes. Just they're on a different. Dundalk are a good side as well, but as we say, they were missing players. But I do think Dundalk, if they could get back to their best, aren't far off them in terms of personnel. But at the same time, I think Jack Byrne there in the middle of the park, he just raises Rovers up another level that nobody else can get to.
You just have to look at that first half. The first half was very tight in terms of play, but Rovers just in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes just literally turned the game and got 3. Once they got the first goal, their tails were up and Dundalk couldn't cope, and at 3-0 at half time, it's game over, like, isn't it, really?
Yeah, big time. As for Sligo Rovers coming into this game, how do you feel about them? They've obviously kept it tight in the last few games, and obviously that narrow win against Derry. And probably not playing the football they were playing maybe 3 weeks ago. They were playing some fantastic football, weren't they? Free-flowing football. But at the moment, I don't think they're quite at that level. So, it's going to be a difficult game for them, isn't it? Let's be honest about it.
It's going to be massively difficult for them. I listened to Stephen Alkin the other night, and he was doing the lineups, and he says that the back four was a brand new back four for Sligo Rovers. I think if it's the same, but you never know with Stephen Alkin, like, really, don't you know? But I think if it's a brand new back four against Shamrock Rovers, I can only see what one team won in the game. It's going to be a big ask for Sligo to get anything out of it. I think if they're going to get anything out of it, it's going to be a draw.
Yeah, and probably a 0-0 draw. It'll be a back to the wall
Yeah.
type draw. But no, I think Shamrock Rovers will continue their good form. I think they might win this one 2-0. What do you think yourself?
Yeah, I'll go 2-1.
2-1. Shelbourne take on Bohemians in the North Dublin Derby at Tolka Park. Shelbourne have had a good season technically, JP. Ian Morris has come in from last season, done a good job, brought them to the Premier Division. He has a relatively young squad there, experience of Gary Deegan in midfield. However, they've won one game in the last 6 games, and they're just above Finn Harps, 3 points above Finn Harps. Their goal difference is a bit better, though. They have a -5, Finn Harps have a -11. You feel they need a couple of points soon just to kind of make sure they don't get into that little scrap. Bohemians, big derby match, obviously. We know how well Bows are doing. They're second, comfortably second as well, aren't they? Like, they're kind of stuck in second now, aren't they? They're not going to catch Rovers. I don't think they're going to finish third. Great season for them. How do you see this one going? It's an interesting derby, isn't it?
Touching on Shelbourne there, I think Shelbourne are in the same boat as Derry and St. Pat's. They just need probably one more one. Looking at the fixtures that Finn Harps have for the rest of the season, I think Derry, Shelbourne, St. Pat's probably just need one more one. They just be guaranteed they stay away from the drop zone. Going into last Friday's game, I thought Derry were going to get bit against Bows, and we were bitterly disappointed to get bit. So it's a derby. Form goes out the window, especially when it's Shelbourne and Bows. And I think Bows will come out on top in the game, but I think Shelbourne will give them a good rattle.
One interesting point about Bohemians, they haven't actually drawn the season, which is strange, isn't it?
No.
Yeah, just noticed that there. So 9 wins and 4 defeats. So, they know to win matches. Even the last few weeks, I don't think they've been playing their best football, but they obviously grinded that out against Derry, clearly. And they grinded the last one out in Sligo, where they won 1-0 with a latish goal for Andrew Wright as well. So they've shown they can do that, I guess, as well. Shelbourne are going to have to show a bit of heart and desire. Their last Dublin derby, the last match was a defeat to Pats, and unusually for Pats actually outplayed them. So they'll want to show a bit more character in this game, and they'll need to get something out of it. I have a strange feeling they're going to nick a point in this one, because the result for Bows, they're kind of stuck in second in a way. So Shelbourne might have that extra bit of desire and hunger coming into this game. And if that's the case, I think they might get a 1-1 draw on this one.
Yeah. As I said earlier, form goes out the window, and especially there's a lot of Bows connection, isn't there, with Shelbourne, isn't there? So the likes of Oscar Brennan and Ian Morris both used to play for Bows, so they'll be wanting to put on a good performance for Shelbourne and get them away from the drop zone, but there's that added incentive as well. And when you go into a derby, you're playing for not just yourselves or your club, but you're playing for your fans, aren't you? So you want to give your fans a bragging right. I know there's going to be probably no fans at the game, but
that's the tough
the
thing.
fans will still be watching and they'll be wanting the bragging rights, so they will.
Definitely.
And I fancy Bows they won it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Shelbourne nicked the draw.
Half sitting on the fence. Cork City take on St.Patrick's Athletic at Turner's Cross. Now, Cork are bottom of the table at 9 points. Pats are 6th with 16. This is one of the games I feel that Cork need to target to win, to be honest with you. Time is running out. Pats obviously had a good performance last week. They've one win in 5, Pats, but weirdly they're unbeaten in 3 because they had 2 0-0 draws before that. So they're looking better as a unit. But I think Cork have to target this, and with games running out, I think it's a big, big win. It's almost a must-win for Cork here. I think if they're beaten, I think they're in serious trouble here if they're beaten in this match. What do you think?
I think from now to the end of the season, Cork have to attack their games. As you said, time's running out for them. It's a half a season. There's 5 games left maximum.
4 games left, isn't it? Yeah. Well, some teams say 5 games left. Yeah, sorry. Oh, apologies, actually. Cork have 6 games left. I'm getting confused with the first division. But they've a game in hand with Dundalk as well. Of course, the game in hand with Dundalk. It's hard to know, though, Dundalk, if they qualify for Europe, they may play a second string. Now, that wouldn't be easy for Cork either, but it would make it easier, wouldn't it? So we don't know about that one. So we'll park that one for now. But it's the game, like the Pats game is the game that, if you're going to stay up, if I'm honest, you kind of have to be targeting that to win at Turner's Cross. You know what I mean?
You have to try and win your home games, especially no matter what end of the table you're on. The difference is if Cork had a packed out Turner's Cross, a packed out Shed, it would make it a really different kind of prospect. But Neil Fenn will know himself, the players will know themselves. They missed a huge opportunity last week when they took a lead at Finn Park and drew 1 each. So they'll know themselves that they need to start winning games. The one thing I don't want is going into the last game of the season and Derry needing to get something against Cork to avoid the drop. And it could make it interesting if Cork got themselves to within anything of the last game but I just don't see, looking at Cork's fixtures, I just don't see them getting out of trouble.
The issue is for them 7 goals this season, massive issue, and they're not exactly tight at the back either. They've conceded 20 goals, so you know what I mean. They've conceded the most amount of goals in the league with Finn Harps, but they've also scored the least amount of goals. So it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? It's hard to see them. If they're going to beat Pats, I think it's going to have to be a 1-0 or something like that. I find it hard to predict. Pats, as I said, have been better the last few weeks as a unit, if you know what I mean. But it's a tough. I still can't see Cork winning it. I don't know. For me, 1-1.
I'm going to go.
So many good. For me,
I'm going to go 2-0 some Pats.
Are you? That would put Cork, I think, in big trouble, wouldn't it?
I think anything other than a 1's going to put Cork in big trouble.
To be honest, if they're beaten there, you'd never know. Neil Fenn's job could be on the line because they might panic and think to themselves, look, if we get a new manager in now, we might get a little bounce. And that would nearly be the best they could hope for, a little bounce to stay up, if you get me. If they do lose, if that happens,
I can see what you're saying, but me personally, I wouldn't see a bounce happening that quick. No. Especially with the group of players that he's got. They're his players. I could see what you're saying. Maybe a new manager, new ideas, bit of a bounce. But for me personally, I just think you could probably put Stephen Kenny in there for the last month of the season and probably wouldn't get nothing out of him.
Mick McCarthy, get him in. Dundalk play on Finn Harps at Oriel Park, and this is going to be an interesting one because of course Dundalk have that European tie tonight. Is this a good time for Finn Harps to get them then?
Possibly. It'll all depend on how tonight's result goes, doesn't it? If Dundalk won, it's likely that they're probably going to rest a couple of players, and I know the group stage isn't for another couple of weeks anyway, but it's possible that they might just rest 1 or 2, and then again, because there's a Sunday, but it is a good time for Finn Harps to be going to Oriel Park. I just wish we maybe were going to Oriel Park ourselves at this time. But well, they have to come to Brandywell, don't they? It's probably the best chance that Finn Harps are going to have to get a win between now and the end of the season, looking at their fixtures. And I think I read earlier in the season that Ollie Horgan has lost all his games against Dundalk since he became manager. I could be, if Nigel wants to correct me on that, then he can. But
they weren't hammered in Finn Park earlier on the season, first couple of games, wasn't it? It was 4-0 to Dundalk as well. So, it's even if Dundalk play their so-called second string, it's difficult to see Finn Harps go up there and get 3 points, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if they do that.
If you look at the team that they had out last week, it was a team that was full of first team players. They basically have 2 11s, don't they? They have their first 11, then they have their second 11, and the second 11 would probably be good enough to finish in the top half. So it is going to be difficult for Finn Harps. I think Dundalk will script it maybe 2-1, maybe 1-0. But if Finn Harps are going to get anything, I think it's going to be a draw.
Yeah, I think they would take that, to be honest with you. I'd go the same. I think Dundalk might scrape it as well. Harps probably defend manfully. Probably 1-0 as well for me, to be honest with you, JP. On to the first division now. Drogheda United take on Athlone Town, JP. Drogheda United are obviously top a point clear. 4 wins out of their last 5. The only blip was a draw. Athlone with 2 wins out of their last 5. Third from bottom in the league. If Drogheda want to get promoted by finishing first, they kind of have to win these type of games, don't they?
Yeah, you do. I think Athlone have a wee bit of a surgence about them, haven't they? Not much of a surgence, but they've picked up a few points since lockdown.
Well, they've got wins,
Since the start.
JP, and then they won 2 in a row. So, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? They were beaten at the weekend in the El Clasico, as I like to call it, the Midlands
yeah,
Derby 4-0 to Longford. But Drogheda have dropped points this season already, by the way, to Athlone. They drew 3-3. And Drogheda
yeah,
have a tendency of beating the teams in and around them. So your Braves, like
yeah,
last week, and they've dropped points against these sides. But this stage of the season, with being so tight, they
yeah,
have to really beat those teams that you feel they should be beaten, you know?
yeah. They do. If they, I tipped Drogheda at the start of the season anyway. They get promoted.
Same.
Um, just because of the way they give Van Harps a good run last year in the playoff final, and they held on their manager. They put a good squad together, and I think everybody throughout Ireland was shocked to see that going into lockdown, the Cabin Teely was top of the league. But I think since lockdown, since the restart, Drogheda have just got their act together. Demons and Bray have just been heads and shoulders above the rest, and they're rightfully the top 2 in the division at the minute. And Drogheda, as you say, they want to be promoted. They don't want to be going into playoffs again, having suffered the heartache last year. So this is a big game for Drogheda. If they win this, then their confidence level will be up heading into the final month of the season. And I tipped them to win the league, so I'm going to tip them to win this game as well.
Definitely, I'll tip them to win. They'll either win it easily or they'll draw. They're a bit like that. So
Yeah,
4-1 for me, actually, for Drogheda, I'm going to go for.
yeah, I'll go maybe 2-0.
2-0 Drogheda. They're good for goals as well. They're a good team to watch too. The other game, the second game then, is UCD at home to Bray Wanderers, and this is why I kind of say Drogheda need to be beaten at Athlone, yeah, because there's a possibility Bray could drop points here. So could you imagine if Bray dropped points and Drogheda failed to beat Athlone, they'd be 6. So by the end of the week, we don't know. You never know what could happen, but there could be a little gap from Drogheda to Bray. UCD can win 5-0 one week and lose 5-0 the next week. But again,
Yeah,
they're great value for money, so to speak. UCD earned 23 points, Bray and 29. Even if UCD win this, I think with only a few games to go, I still can't see them getting into the conversation to finish top, if I'm honest with you. But it's all about trying to cement a playoff place for them.
yeah,
It's a difficult one, this, to judge. Bray need to hit back after losing that big game psychologically as well to draw the last week, don't they? Tough one, this, I think.
yeah. It's actually a kind of a derby as well, isn't it? Because
Yeah, there wouldn't be
there's
for
not that far apart between them, and Bray will want to keep on the coattails of Drogheda, knowing that Drogheda are playing Athlone. So
yeah.
they will be determined to get the win. Um, as are UCD, because they know that if they can win, they'll put themselves really in with a shout of maybe getting into a top 4 in a playoff spot. Um, but I think Bray have been a more consistent team, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I just it's either going to be a draw, I think, or a Bray one. I know last week UCD put 5 past Shamrock Rovers 2, but was it still 2 or 3 they conceded, wasn't it?
You can see the 2, the 1-5-2, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, as you say, they're good going forward, but they do concede goals. So I think Bray is going to win this game.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. They've got the two strikers, Whelan and Madai, have actually scored their second and third in the top scorers charts behind Mark Doyle and Drogheda. So they've a good partnership, which is unusual because we don't see partnerships up front in soccer really very often these days, which is great to see, by the way. But
It is. I think strike partnerships is now becoming strike trios, isn't it? Really, it's
yeah, the inverted wingers, yeah.
yeah, it's developing now, and it's very rare do you see a team go two up top now.
Mm.
The last time I remember two up top was Mark Farren and Gary Beckett. And they were a formidable partnership. But I think, as you say, two up. If you're going to get promoted, you need to share the goals around, and them two, as you say, they're just behind Mark Doyle in the scoring chart. So it could be very interesting this game.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a tough one to call. I think there'll be goals.
Yeah.
2-2, but I honestly think it could go either way. I'm sitting on the fence because I think either team really could win this one. It's a tough one to call. Wouldn't suit Bray, unfortunately, for them if that was the case. Wexford FC take on Shamrock Rovers B. Now, this is a bit, you've second bottom against bottom. Like, Wexford have win the last 5, JP. Shamrock Rovers B haven't won any of the last 5. Despite that, they were only beaten the last minute by Drogheda recently as well. So they've some handy players there. Wexford's result last week was unbelievable. They were 10-1 to beat Cabinteely, and they actually beat them 5-1. So I'd love to know what the odds were for them to win by 5 goals to 1. You bet 100-1. Could you imagine going into the bookies? Can I have a tenner on Wexford to beat Cabinteely 5-1, please? I don't know what happened there. Like,
they probably would have snapped you. They probably would have took a tenner clean off you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a shock for me as well. Because even though Cabinteely have dropped off a wee bit since the restart, I didn't expect them to lose to Wexford, never mind lose 5-1. Wexford, they were a really good side, weren't they, a few years ago, and they built their way up the promotion, and then they got up. They get up a year too soon, who knows? Because since they've gone down, they haven't really been the same team since, have they?
They struggled last season. They were a disaster last season, JP. They got 10 points, in a 36 or whatever game season. So this season's obviously far better. Like, they're around 8 points, and obviously we only have, 11 games gone, 12 games gone. So they have improved overall. So you have to say from where they were last season, there is a massive improvement, and they have had some good results this season. I suppose it's a case of them trying not to finish bottom of the league. Rovers B are obviously a development squad. But they have some great players in there. Brandon Kavanagh is a fantastic young player.
Yeah.
Who, as we all know, sometimes Dean Williams plays as well. So I always find it difficult to predict Shamrock Rovers B because I can never predict what team they're going to put out as well. Yeah. I think it's a sit in the fence job again here for me. I think I'll go for 1-1.
I think it's going to be a draw as well. But I think Shamrock Rovers B being able to put up, is it 8 points they've got so far this season?
Yeah.
And they've a couple of wins as well under their belt. Yeah. So I think that is that's perfect for them, because at the start of the season, a lot of teams are writing them off. What is the purpose of them? Me personally, as a League Ireland fan, I'd rather see 20 teams, 20 different clubs. But at the end of the day, it would have been unfair for the first division teams to have to play an odd number. And given how the year has panned out with the pandemic and stuff like that there, it may have been a blessing having that extra team on.
It's better than having 9 teams in the league, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's no question about
that. It definitely is. So I think they've probably done more than what a lot of people expected them to do. And personally, I hope that maybe it doesn't continue on the next season with them, but I think it possibly will, just because of how everything has developed, really. And look, they've done better than what most people. Me personally, I thought it wouldn't have been.
JP not to have more points, if I'm honest with you, because they've had a couple of games been tight and that kind of thing. And
as you say, they lost the Drogheda late on.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of young players as well, so you get that inconsistency with young players too. But overall, they've done all right. They did draw with Drogheda, by the way, earlier on the season as well. But there's another example of Drogheda dropping points to the lower teams, as I said as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to go for a draw on that one, but just because I think Shamrock Rovers, they've got a good batch of young players there, and as you say, they're grinding. They're going deep into games with the bigger teams, and I just think that against the likes of Wexford, they might just get over the line. So I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game.
I'll draw as well. So on to Cove and Cabinteely, and this is going to be an interesting one because Cove are 3 points off Cabinteely, who are currently in the playoffs. it's a massive game for Cabinteely. They've gone from top, as you said earlier, to really hanging on those playoff zones. But that 5-1 defeat at home to Wexford, you would have thought has knocked a lot of confidence out of them. That said, sometimes you put in a good performance when you get destroyed. It's almost like you've nothing to lose all of a sudden. But to go down to Cove, it's going to be a difficult one for Cabinteely mentally now, isn't it? And it's going to be a test of strength of character more so than their actual quality going down there now, isn't it?
It definitely is. Like if they were going into as top of the league or maybe second, you're probably thinking it's a straightforward one for Cabinteely. But coming off a back of a drubbing against Wexford, um, I'm sure Pat Devlin would have drubbed it under them this week that if they want to play Premier Division football next year, they have to get their act together. Cove have been up and down again, but I think they've been probably maybe consistent over the last few weeks. I know they lost late on against Galway as well last week or the week before. It
was a sickler, 10 minutes of injury time, and it was. I don't know if you've seen the goal. I saw it on Facebook, but it was a free kick from the left, and it was a cross, and it just went by the keeper into the net. So it was a horrible one to concede as well.
Yeah, so that would have been a huge point for Cove as well. I think because of the way Cabinteely are in free fall, I think maybe that's a bit harsh on them. I don't know, but
considering they were top, put it this way: considering they were top, I think they are, JP, because at one point, not too long ago, they had a 5-point gap over the leaders. Now they're 7 points behind Drogheda, and that's only like 5 or 6 games ago. You have to remember as well. So you would say it's free fall at this stage. If they were offered a playoff place, they'd snap it off you. Put it that way. If they lose the Cove.
Yeah, I can't. If they lose the Cove, I can't see them getting into playoffs. And I think personally they're going to lose the Cove. I think just because of the way they've been over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and Cove may not have been pulling up any trees in terms of results and consistency, but I think they're more consistent in terms of what Cabinteely are.
Yeah, they probably have been since lockdown. I'm going to go for Cove to win this as well. Yeah. Cabinteely do tend to leak goals as well. Cove don't score too many, but I still think 2-1 Cove for me.
I'll go 3-0 Cove.
3-0. Ooh, that's a big one, isn't it? The final game now of the weekend is another interesting one as well. Longford Town take on Galway at the City Calling Stadium. Now, Longford are kind of they're hiding in the long grass a little bit here, aren't they? Like, they're third and they're only a couple of points, 4 points off Drogheda, they're 3 points off Bray. So they're kind of looking at this, if they can try and get a win here, hoping one of the others drop points, at least one of the others drop points. Galway have been in excellent form since Caulfield came in, but they were beaten last weekend as well. Massive game, this one. Hard one to call, isn't it?
It is. I think Longford are the team that nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking about Bray and Drogheda. And Cabinteely and Cove and you've got Longford sitting in third,
in the middle.
And nobody seems to be mentioning them, and people are even talking about maybe UCD catching the leaders. Longford are 4 points behind the leaders. So I think Longford will be happy to remain underdogs and just quietly sneak up there.
They probably have to win though this weekend, do they? Because it's unlikely and Bray are going to up, if you know what I mean. So they're in a weird way, you're right, and another way they're under pressure in a sense because if they know they have to keep winning just to keep in touch. But they are just there, as you say, and a lot of people's favourites actually win the league this season as well. I don't think it'll be far off in the end. But Galway are going to bring it. They're going to be difficult. They're going to be difficult to beat. Caulfield has done brilliant there. Now, they suffered a defeat last week, but they're always going to drop points at some stage, weren't they? So it'll be a tight one.
Caulfield has surprised me. I knew going in, they were getting a good manager. I knew that. Everybody knew that. I was just surprised at how quickly he's managed to just put a new group together and get them with them. Because I think they're not far off the playoffs either. Like, so if they could win this one, they may well fancy their chances over the final weeks this season.
The thing is, if they got into the playoffs because of, they're almost like a different team to where they were at the start of the season, they'd fancy their chances of actually going up. I still think it'd be ideally you take it if you're a Galway fan, but I think what'd be best for them is not to go up and get Caulfield to build his team for next season and get in a few players he wants to bring in and have a proper challenge. I think if they went up, it'd be very, very difficult for them next season, like, you know.
It would be just getting up to a year too early. As I think you need to build. You need to build a team from the first division. They compete. I think teams coming up within a year of getting a new manager, I think it has ended in disaster, really, hasn't it, in the past? And I think Athlone were the same, but they got up under Roddy Collins. Monaghan, they came up as well, although Monaghan did build the team over a couple of years under Mick Cook. But I think Roddy may have brought Emmons up a year too soon. He may have brought Athlone a year too soon, and I just think it'd be ideal for Galway. Their fans would love it, I think. But I think long term, I think they would relish.
Put it that way, you know, that kind of way.
But going back to Longford, I think they will be under pressure to win this because, as you say, Drogheda and Bray are playing above them. It's difficult fixtures for the two of them. It's fixtures in which the two of them can drop points, and Longford will be looking at that and thinking, if we can win, we can put the pressure on the top two. You touched on it earlier. If Drogheda was to drop points and Bray was to drop points, Drogheda would kick themselves. I think if the top two was to drop points and Longford drop points, Longford would equally kick themselves.
I think they'd kick themselves even more, wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely.
I find it a difficult one to call, JP, but because the need maybe is bigger or greater, if you like, for Longford, and because I suppose nothing against Galway, but I'd like to see it more exciting, you know. I'll go for Longford to win this one, maybe 1-0, just pinch 1-0 for me.
Yeah, I think there'll be goals in this game, so I'm going to go 2-1 Longford.
2-1 Longford. Brilliant stuff, JP. Here, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe if you're new. Hit your bell notification button and like the video if you like the content. JP, love that. Brilliant stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, Keith. Thank you.